There are always two sides to every story. In Tokyo, it's old and new, traditional and modern, in tension and in harmony. Whether it's the dress, the architecture, or the arts and design, the visual language of Japan's foremost metropolis draws from a deep well of heritage to quench a thirst to create the future. Throughout Japanese aesthetics flows the worldview of wabi-sabi, a philosophy that embraces transience and praises imperfection, the genius of nature, the fleetingness of life, the unfinished and unfinishable project of humanity. Wabi-sabi asks us to tune in, not to hear, but to listen, not to look, but to see.
I consider flowers to be gods. We are not a monotheistic country. In Japan, all things in nature are worshipped, like flowers. In the cycle of a year, once spring comes, plants start sprouting, leaves grow thick, they bear fruit, and then they wither. Human life shares the same cycle with nature.
Ikebana, the Japanese art of flower arrangement, with origins in the 6th century. An exercise in discipline and minimalism.
In Japanese, the word ikeru, to arrange flowers, means the same thing as the word ikiru, to live. The point is to see the whole universe contained within a single flower.
Toshiro Kawase is one of the country's most influential practitioners of Ikebana. Born in Kyoto in 1948, he subscribes to no particular school and is unconcerned with mere aesthetics. For him, Ikebana serves as a meditation on life and existence.
The Japanese have been arranging flowers by continuously drawing portraits of the soul. At the beginning, I had a really strong enthusiasm for this craft, so I wouldn't feel satisfied unless I used a whole bunch of flowers. But as I reached a certain age, I finally saw myself reflected in the power that one flower has.
With a vigor that belies his 70 years, Kawase bends and shapes the branches, cutting the stems, pruning the leaves, and arranging the plants to create moments of contemplation. Tatehana, vertical lines that represent the connection between heaven, earth, and mankind. Nageire, a free-form arrangement that translates as thrown in. Chobana, ikebana for display in a Japanese tea ceremony. On a Saturday afternoon in Tokyo's Setagaya district, scores of eager students gather to learn about the floral art from Kawase himself. One by one, the students come up to pay their respects to his compositions, which have been called portraits of Japan in flowers. In the chic Aoyama neighborhood of Tokyo, Makoto Azuma and his team are unpacking the morning shipment of flowers. Hundreds of blooms of every shape and hue fill the underground laboratory in a botanical pageant.
Flowers make you think about time. They are living things destined to one day decay and then disappear. Both the people who work with flowers and those who receive them can't help but be aware of this fact.
While Azuma wouldn't call his work ikebana, he says he has a lot of respect for the art form as it reflects the way that Japanese people think about nature.
Spirituality is very important in my work, since we are taking the lives of living things to create something new and beautiful. We understand how important it is to approach flowers with humility, because the act of killing flowers is so selfish.
With singular surgical focus, Azuma creates pieces that blur the lines between bouquet and sculpture, mixing flowers of different lifespans and manners of blooming, but all fated to perish in 2 weeks' time. Along with his old friend and photographer Shunsuke Shinoki, Azuma has found a way to grant the flowers a form of everlasting life by freezing them in acrylic or capturing images of them in extreme conditions like space or the deep sea.
What kinds of expressions would flowers have in space? Or if we put them deep in the ocean, how would they move underwater? I wanted to put flowers in severe circumstances to see how they look and to pursue a new kind of beauty.
Part of Azuma's work involves cataloging the characteristics of plant specimens. Today, he's investigating pine tree needles with clippings from forests across all of Japan.
Our ultimate mission is to bring out the best characteristics of the plants. So we have to learn, for example, how pine trees decay and what kind of shape do pines from certain prefectures have. At my core, I'm a florist. I just want to work with and be surrounded by flowers every day. That, for me, is the best relationship.
On a summer day in Tokyo's Asakusa district, dozens of tourists play dress-up in Japanese kimonos, a procession of vibrant colors and floral prints disguising the reality that the kimono industry is in steep decline. The embrace of Western attire and the costliness of the kimono have led many Japanese to wear the traditional garment only on special occasions. But a cadre of craftsmen and designers in Tokyo are trying to preserve the enduring symbol of Japan. At his 88-year-old workshop in Shinjuku, one man continues his family's kimono-making legacy.
Edokomon is a dyed material that represents Tokyo. It has a history of 250 years, and the patterns are very small. The process of making Edokomon requires the craftsman to fully concentrate and to work with speed, accuracy, and perseverance.
Edokomon refers to a kimono pattern dyed by hand using intricate stencils. With meticulous care, Yuichi Hirose spreads a colored rice paste called nori over the stencil, transforming a 13-meter fabric into a frenzy of sharks. The fourth-generation craftsman started using unconventional stencils about 5 years ago to broaden the market for his kimonos. Hirose uses around 3 kilograms of nori in one length of fabric. His apprentice, 19-year-old Kaisuke Saito, helps him to create the color paste, which will be used up by the end of the day.
A lot of young people like me don't know much about Edo Kommon, but I want to continue this traditional craft for future generations.
In these galaxies of tiny dots, generations of expertise handed down through the daily, tireless work of craftsmen.
I've been thinking about why it's so important for craftsmen to keep using these traditional techniques, and I've reached the conclusion that there's no new technology that can beat the beauty and timelessness of something made by hand.
In his studio in Shibuya, Yuima Nakazato is sketching a look that may seem more space-age than old school. Exploring the intersection between fashion and technology, his shimmering designs have been described as neo-futurist, but Nakazato says that at its core, his work is inspired by age-old Japanese design.
In Japan, we have a textile culture called boro that comes from the tradition of caring for and mending kimonos by patching pieces together. By doing this, people could wear them for a long time, because kimonos were very expensive. I was wondering how I could tap into that culture for the modern age.
Nakazato's solution was to create detachable units that can combine to form customizable garments. It's a bid to foster sustainability in the notoriously wasteful fashion industry and to bridge the gap between the latest technologies and ancient tradition. Perhaps no artist has had as great an influence on Japan's visual vocabulary as Katsushika Hokusai, the eccentric master of ukiyo-e, Japanese woodblock prints that flourished from the 17th to 19th centuries. His Great Wave off Kanagawa is considered one of Japanese art's most recognizable works.
Many people view the painting as the very essence of Japanese culture. The simple and powerful composition of the mountain, along with the shape of the wave, strikes right at the heart of the observer. That's why Hokusai became so famous.
Craftsman Noriyasu Soda is working on a replica of Hokusai's famous wave. He first dampens the washi paper before applying paint and a small amount of rice glue to the woodblock, ensuring that the color will stick. The process is painstaking and manual, demanding utmost precision. Each side of every block represents a different color that will be layered into the ukiyo-e.
Back in the Edo period, when there was no TV or internet, ukiyo-e was a tool to spread information, like which plays were being performed at which theaters or where you should go to have a beautiful view of Mount Fuji. It was never considered an art. At some point, ukiyo-e was brought to foreign countries. We Japanese didn't realize how wonderful they were because we just took them for granted in our daily lives.
Yukiko Takahashi is the 6th generation owner of the publishing house Takahashi Kobo. Her family has been making ukiyo-e for more than 150 years. She says it takes about a decade to become a true shokunin, or artisan, of ukiyo-e, and that there are only 25 left in Tokyo today.
We have to succeed in passing down this wonderful technique of ukiyo-e woodblock prints. The craftsmen involved in this work are trying their best to teach these skills to the next generation.
Working under a pseudonym, Yamada Zenjido channels the popular appeal of ukiyo-e by posting his contemporary renditions on social media. Ditching the woodblocks for digital tools, his work riffs on the awkwardness and humor of modern life.
That awkward moment when you're checking yourself out in the mirror and you realize someone's behind you. That moment when a computer you're trying out in the electronics store suddenly crashes and you quickly have to leave the store. People think that ukiyo-e is an imperial art form, but it was originally sold for as cheap as a bowl of soba. Ukiyo-e is an art for the average person, so I paint everyday scenes that anyone could relate to. Ukiyo-e was mass-produced, quickly made, and quickly published, with news and information. I think that social media fulfills the same purpose today.
With hundreds of thousands of followers on social media, Zenjido says he hopes that his work, though modern in execution, will spark renewed interest in the centuries-old art form. In ultra-modern Tokyo, it's not always easy to find signs of a bygone era. Most of the city's skyline only dates back to the 1980s, as Japan's post-war economy reached a crescendo and the megacity as we know it started taking shape. But in the Inaka district, the warmth of wood replaces the ever-present cool of concrete and steel, and the spirit of old Tokyo flows through the Shitamachi like wind. A new exhibit at the Mori Art Museum attempts to trace the line that connects Japan's traditional architecture to today's designs.
This is a model of the Great Thousand Gate in the Todaiji. And this is a good example of showcase Japanese traditional architecture.
The traditional building technique known as kigumi interlocks wooden components without the use of nails, inspiring Japan's leading architects in their own works.
Before modern times, Japanese wooden buildings were unified with nature. There was a continuity. However, Western modernism separates buildings from nature with walls. So, for more than 10 years, I have thought about how I can connect buildings and nature more intimately again.
In Western Tokyo, architect Toyo Ito's vision for a harmony between nature and design takes root. The Tama Art University Library is built on a slope overlooking a forest of dancing trees. Concrete arches crisscross one another, evoking the feeling of being in the woods. And low-slung bookshelves present an unobstructed view of the greenery that surrounds the campus.
Shizen, the Japanese word for nature, and it imported in the Meiji period, 150 years ago. So before that period, we don't have the word to differentiate nature from other things. You can trace this character in the Japanese architecture in a way that there is a blurred difference, blurred border between inside and outside.
People relax when they are surrounded by nature, and they feel tension when they enter buildings. So, to release that tension, I try to create an atmosphere where people feel like they are surrounded by nature, even when they are actually in buildings.
Ito says that a city like Tokyo is in a constant architectural flux, and that it's fate to be built and rebuilt. He recognizes, too, that his own projects are impermanent, subject to change. In Suginami Ward, Ito's Za Koenji Public Theater is a reaction of withdrawal from its surroundings. Designed to be closed off from passing trains and heavy traffic, the theater becomes a crucible of culture, with a constellation of dots funneling natural and artificial light into its dark belly.
I think one characteristic of Tokyo's architecture is finding order in chaos.
By contrast, the designs of Kazuyo Sejima, who once worked under Ito, are marked by lightness and minimalism.
I don't think I was particularly conscious of it, but I was very naturally influenced by the Japanese way of creating a space.
Opened in 2016, the Sumida Hokusai Museum is Sejima's temple to the famed ukiyo-e master. Angular cutouts, Sejima says, help the museum blend in with the randomness of its environment, while the facade reflects the neighborhood that Hokusai lived and worked in.
I want to create spaces that are like parks, which people with various purposes can share. A place where mothers and children play while salarymen take breaks and couples enjoy time together. Each person finds their own comfortable space, but at the same time share a sense of community. I wish I can build architecture that realizes such a feeling.
At Shibaura House, she says the openness of the space fosters connections between floors, between indoors and outdoors, and between people.
People work on various floors, but I wanted them to feel a connection to the whole instead of feeling separated from each other. It's an office building, but is connected with the outside by the terraces, which helps you find inspiration by being connected with the outdoors.
The inspiration that contemporary Japanese architects find from nature is as old as Japanese architecture itself, and even in the midst of urban Tokyo, a hybrid of influences from the past and from outside of Japan melding together to define the city's built future. The pursuit of beauty assumes many forms in Tokyo. It may be a quiet craft honed over generations, or it could be a radical departure from an old method. Whichever the side, whatever the technique, the spirit of wabi-sabi lies at the center of Tokyo's art.